Chapter 1. Abandoned Among the Stars. The cold never really left Merrick's bones, not even inside the cracked hull of the shuttle that had crashed on the ragged surface of Vera Prime, a forsaken moon orbiting a dying star in the outer rim. His breath came ragged, each inhale sharp against the thinning atmosphere as he struggled to keep consciousness. The sterile hum of the shuttle's damaged life support systems was fading, and the jagged rocks and strange bioluminescent flora outside the shattered viewport offered no comfort, only a harsh reminder of their desolation. Merrick was not alone in this wreckage, though the solitude pressed in on him like the weight of the vast void itself. Beside him lay a figure swathed in tattered fabrics, her body unnaturally still and pale beneath the dim emergency lights. An alien girl with eyes closed, her limbs paralyzed by wounds no one had bothered to treat. They had left them here. Merrick knew it deep down, in the pit of his stomach, even if his battered mind refused to accept the betrayal outright. The mission had been supposed to be a simple escort of the alien envoy, an attempt at fragile peace talks between human factions and the Veran Council. But the skies had turned against them. Enemy fire had torn their shuttle apart, and when rescue never came, Merrick and the alien girl whom he had only just met were left to rot in the hostile wilderness. The others, the ones with power and privilege, had abandoned them without a second thought, consigning them to death beneath a foreign sky. The bitterness of that truth was a shadow that clung to Merrick's fading consciousness as he fought the darkness creeping at the edges of his vision. Yet beneath the despair, something stirred. The alien girl's chest rose slightly with a shallow breath, and Merrick's eyes caught the faintest flicker of movement beneath her eyelids. Her species, the Verani, were known for their mysterious biogenetic abilities. Legends whispered among galactic travelers spoke of healers and warriors with powers born of the stars themselves. Merrick had dismissed these tales as folklore, remnants of an ancient culture struggling to hold on in a galaxy ruled by cold logic and firepower. But now, staring at her fragile form, he wondered if there was truth hidden in those stories. For despite her paralyzed state, the girl radiated a quiet strength, an aura that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, faint yet undeniable in the suffocating gloom of the shuttle's cockpit. Hours passed, or maybe it was days. Time had lost all meaning here in the dead zone of Vera Prime. Merrick's wounds throbbed relentlessly, and the limited rations he had scavenged from the wreckage were dwindling fast. Still, he refused to abandon the girl, driven by something he couldn't quite name. Maybe it was guilt, or stubborn hope, or the simple human need to protect another soul in the cold vastness of space. He kept talking to her, whispering stories of Earth, of home, of suns rising and setting over oceans she would never see. The sound of his voice seemed to stir a response, subtle and strange, a flicker of warmth beneath her pale skin, a soft glow emanating from her fingertips when his hand brushed against her. Then came the night when the sky cracked open with violent storms, and a pack of feral Veran predators descended on the crash site, their eyes glowing with hunger and malice. Merrick barely had strength to move, but when the creatures approached, something remarkable happened. The alien girl stirred violently, her body tense and rigid despite her paralysis. A shimmering shield of light erupted around her like a radiant cocoon, pushing back the predators with a force that left Merrick breathless. The shield pulsed in time with her breathing, growing stronger as the creatures recoiled and fled. Merrick watched in stunned silence as the girl's eyes finally opened, glowing with an ethereal blue light that illuminated the cockpit in a haunting glow. It was then he realized the truth: she healed when she protected. Every pulse of her shield mended her broken limbs, knitting flesh and bone with energies that defied science. The girl was not helpless. She was a guardian, a living force bound to the sacred duty of defense. As dawn crept over the barren horizon, painting the sky with hues of blood and gold, Merrick felt a flicker of hope ignite within his chest. They had been left to die, abandoned by a galaxy that had turned its back on them. But together, they might just survive. Together, they might rewrite the fate that others had tried to seal with cold cruelty. The alien girl, once paralyzed and forgotten, was awakening not just in body, but in power and purpose. And Merrick, the man who had thought himself helpless and lost, found strength in her light, a promise that in the darkest void, protection was not just a shield, but a path to healing and salvation. Chapter 2. The Awakening Within the Ruins. The bitter cold of Vera Prime's barren landscape seeped through the fragile remains of the shuttle like a relentless phantom, gnawing at the edges of Merrick's dwindling consciousness. Time had become a meaningless blur of pain and hope, a cruel cycle of suffering broken only by the soft, steady breaths of the alien girl beside him. Though her body lay motionless, bound by paralysis that rendered her helpless by every human measure, there was a force simmering beneath the surface, a latent power that defied explanation and ignited an ember of life even in the harshest desolation. Merrick's hands trembled as he checked the scant supplies salvaged from the wreckage, every ration a precious lifeline, every drop of water a gift from a merciless planet. The silence between them was thick with unspoken fears and fragile trust, a tenuous bond forged in the crucible of abandonment. As hours slipped into an endless night, Merrick found himself mesmerized by the faint glow emanating from the girl's fingertips, a delicate blue shimmer that pulsed in sync with her faint heartbeats. It was unlike any bioluminescence he had ever seen, delicate yet powerful, as if her body was channeling the very essence of the cosmos. His mind raced to connect the fragments of ancient Varen lore whispered among spacefarers, tales of healers who drew strength from the sacred duty of protection, warriors who could mend wounds and soothe pain simply by standing as a shield for others. Could this girl, abandoned and broken, be one of those rare beings? Merrick dared to hope, even as his own strength waned and the cold gnawed deeper. One night, as the twin moons cast ghostly shadows over the jagged rocks, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The dormant predators of Vera Prime, sleek, vicious creatures adapted to the planet's lethal environment, had caught the scent of life. Their glowing eyes pierced the darkness, and their guttural growls echoed like thunder through the ruins. Merrick, barely able to stand, fumbled for a makeshift weapon, a shard of metal jagged and unforgiving. But before he could raise it, a surge of radiant energy burst from the girl's form, wrapping around her like a shimmering cocoon. The predators faltered, their advance halted by an invisible barrier pulsing with radiant light. Merrick's heart pounded as the shield flared brighter, tendrils of blue energy weaving outward, repelling the beasts with waves of force. His awe turned to disbelief as the alien girl's eyes snapped open, blazing with an ethereal blue glow that illuminated the wreckage in a surreal light. Her lips parted, not to speak, but to command, and the shield responded, strengthening with every breath she took. Merrick watched, breathless, as the paralysis that had once held her captive seemed to ebb with the protective energy she summoned. Slowly, hesitantly, her fingers twitched, joints moving with the tentative grace of new life. The warmth of healing spread from her core, a gentle tide mending the ravages inflicted by crash and neglect. Merrick reached out, his touch meeting hers, and the pulse of her powers surged through him, soothing the pain that had racked his body. Together, they faced the howling storm of predators, not as helpless victims, but as a united force. The alien girl, once deemed broken and doomed, became a beacon of resilience and power, her shield a living testament to the ancient Varen belief that true healing springs forth only through protection of others. Merrick's disbelief gave way to profound respect, his spirit rekindled by the realization that survival was no longer a matter of chance, but of choice, courage, and an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of shared adversity. As dawn painted the horizon with streaks of violet and gold, the dangers receded, but the trials ahead remained daunting. The galaxy beyond Vera Prime's desolation was rife with foes who had cast them aside like forgotten relics. Yet Merrick no longer felt the crushing weight of abandonment. He had found an ally, a guardian whose power could change the fate written by cruel stars. Together, they would rise from the ashes of despair, challenging a universe that had forgotten the strength born of healing and protection. Chapter 3. The Power of Protection. The sun had barely begun its slow ascent over the jagged horizon of Vera Prime, casting long, cold shadows over the desolate terrain when Merrick awoke to the gentle warmth radiating from the alien girl beside him. Her body, once as still and fragile as the ancient ruins that surrounded them, now hummed with an energy that seemed both foreign and profoundly comforting. It was a transformation that defied everything Merrick had understood about survival, biology, and the fragile limits of flesh and spirit. The paralysis that had once shackled her limbs was receding like a tide, ebbing away with every pulse of protective power she summoned. As her eyes fluttered open, clear and bright like twin stars, Merrick felt a surge of hope kindle within his chest, a hope that transcended their bleak surroundings and whispered of miracles born in the crucible of adversity. The Verani girl, whom he had come to know as Lyra, was not merely healing. She was awakening to her true nature. Merrick watched as her fingers flexed and curled with a grace that belied the violence of their recent trials. She rose slowly, her movements tentative but purposeful, each step a declaration against the fate that had sought to claim them. The protective shield that had once flared in desperation was now a steady aura enveloping her, a living extension of her will and spirit. It was clear that Lyra's healing was inexorably linked to her capacity to protect, a sacred bond encoded in the very fabric of her being. Every act of defense strengthened her. Every moment of shielding another healed the wounds that marred her body and soul. This profound truth, unknown to Merrick until now, was the key to their survival and perhaps to something far greater. Together, they ventured beyond the shattered wreckage, navigating the treacherous landscapes of Vera Prime with a cautious optimism. The alien flora, once menacing in its unfamiliarity, seemed to respond to Lyra's presence, parting in luminescent waves as she passed. Her powers were growing, manifesting in subtle but undeniable ways the ability to mend torn vines, to soothe the parched ground, and to call forth bursts of energy that repelled hostile creatures lurking in the shadows. Merrick, once a lone survivor marked for death, found himself reborn as a guardian and partner, bound not just by necessity, but by a shared destiny woven through the stars. Their bond became a beacon in the darkness, a testament to resilience and the indomitable will to protect and heal. Yet, beyond the fragile beauty of their sanctuary, the galaxy churned with turmoil and menace. The faction that had abandoned them, the ruthless corporate coalition known as the Crimson Dominion, continued its relentless expansion, driven by greed and a ruthless hunger for control. Their forces scoured systems in search of resources and dissenters, leaving trails of devastation in their wake. Merrick knew that their survival depended not only on Lyra's growing powers, but on confronting the very forces that had cast them aside. The Dominion's agents had already dispatched search parties to Vera Prime, hunting for any survivors who might expose their secrets or threaten their dominion. In the days that followed, Merrick and Lyra transformed from desperate fugitives into a formidable team. Lyra's healing abilities deepened, now capable of restoring not just her own body, but also soothing Merrick's injuries and fatigue. The symbiosis of their powers and wills forged a new kind of strength, one born of trust and mutual protection. Merrick trained in the ruins of the old settlement, honing his combat skills and strategies, while Lyra meditated beneath the alien moons, drawing energy from the planet itself. Their connection transcended language, rooted in shared glances, subtle touches, and the unspoken understanding that they were each other's salvation. But power, as always, invited peril. One evening, as the twin moons bathed the landscape in silver light, the tranquility shattered. A patrol of Crimson Dominion mercenaries descended upon their hidden refuge, their weapons cutting through the night like fire and steel. Merrick sprang into action, shielding Lyra as she summoned a radiant barrier that flared with dazzling intensity. The battle was fierce and desperate. Every strike against their foes healed Lyra, mending wounds and bolstering her strength. The Dominion forces, unprepared for such resilience and unity, faltered and retreated, leaving Merrick and Lyra victorious but wary. They knew this was but the first of many confrontations, an opening salvo in a war that would test the limits of their newfound bond. As dawn broke once more over Vera Prime, Merrick stood beside Lyra, gazing at the horizon with resolve tempered by the trials endured. They were no longer merely survivors. They were the embodiment of hope in a galaxy desperate for heroes. Their journey was just beginning, a path fraught with danger and discovery, but illuminated by the unyielding light of protection and healing. Together, They would confront the darkness that sought to consume them and reclaim the future stolen by those who had left them to die. Chapter 4: Redemption in the Shadow of War. The air was thick with tension as Merrick and Lyra emerged from the dense alien forests surrounding their sanctuary, the weight of countless battles etched into their bodies and souls. The once fragile bond forged in desperation had transformed into an unbreakable alliance, tempered by fire and unwavering trust. Vera Prime's twin moons cast long silver shadows over the jagged terrain, painting the landscape with hues of mystery and resolve. As the first tendrils of dawn pierced the horizon, the distant roar of Crimson Dominion warships shattered the fragile silence, heralding an approaching storm that threatened not only their survival, but the very fate of the galaxy. Merrick tightened his grip on the makeshift weapon in his hands, his eyes locked on the horizon where the enemy fleet's silhouettes glinted like specters against the star-streaked sky. Their journey had led them across shattered planets and forgotten ruins, each step a testament to the growing power within Lyra and the unyielding determination of a man once abandoned to die. The legends whispered among the scattered colonies spoke of the Varani's ancient gift, a power born of protection, a healing force that grew stronger with every sacrifice made for others. Merrick had witnessed this truth firsthand, each battle revealing new depths of Lyra's abilities, a luminous shield that not only repelled death, but mended wounds, bound souls, and sparked hope in the darkest moments. But the approaching war was unlike any they had faced before. The Crimson Dominion was relentless, their thirst for domination matched only by their cruelty. Entire systems had already fallen beneath their iron grip, and now they set their sights on Vera Prime, the last refuge of a defiant resistance. Merrick and Lyra moved swiftly through the rugged landscape, their footsteps silent but purposeful. The ancient ruins where they had taken refuge now served as a command center, a beacon of resistance against the encroaching darkness. Survivors from across the sector gathered beneath banners of rebellion, their faces etched with fatigue but illuminated by the flickering hope that Merrick and Lyra embodied. The alien girl's healing aura flowed like a river through the wounded ranks, her presence a balm to battered bodies and broken spirits alike. Merrick watched as her hands glowed with celestial light, weaving through the chaos to mend fractures and soothe pain, each act of protection strengthening the bond between them and amplifying their collective resolve. The night before the impending assault was fraught with whispered fears and silent prayers. Merrick found himself standing beside Lyra atop a cragged overlook, the stars above bearing witness to their solemn vow. "We were left to die," he murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of past betrayals. "But together, we've become something more." They underestimated the strength born from protection. Lyra's eyes, radiant and steady, met his with a fierce determination that spoke of centuries of hope and survival. "Our power is not just in healing wounds," she replied softly. "It is in the shield we raise for others, the sacrifices we bear so that light may endure. This war will test us, but it will also define us." When dawn broke, the battlefield erupted into chaos. Crimson Dominion forces descended in brutal waves, their warships casting dark shadows over the planet's surface as ground troops spilled from landing pods like a flood. Merrick rallied the defenders, his voice cutting through the roar of conflict as he coordinated strikes and defenses with fierce precision. Lyra moved through the fray like a living beacon, her healing light a luminous shield that turned the tide of battle time and again. Each time an ally faltered, her protective power surged, knitting flesh and spirit with radiant energy that defied the ravages of war. The bond between Merrick and Lyra was the heart of their resistance, a living testament to the strength forged in the crucible of abandonment and rebirth. Hours bled into an endless storm of conflict, the ground littered with the fallen and the triumphant alike. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a silence fell over the battlefield, heavy and profound. The Crimson Dominion had been repelled, their forces shattered and broken, retreating into the void from whence they came. Merrick, bruised but unbowed, stood alongside Lyra amidst the ruins, the glow of her healing light a gentle warmth against the chill of victory. The war was far from over, but they had struck a blow that would echo through the stars, a promise that those left to die could rise and protect what remained. As the night wrapped its velvet cloak around Vera Prime, Merrick and Lyra looked to the heavens, their hearts united in a silent prayer. The galaxy was watching, and in their defiance, they had become a symbol, proof that protection was not weakness, but the greatest power of all. Together, they would face the shadows yet to come, guardians of a legacy born in sacrifice and healed by the unyielding light of hope. As night deepened across the scarred surface of Vera Prime, the air grew thick with a stillness that felt almost sacred. The battlefield lay quiet beneath the twin moons, but the war had left its mark, not just on the land but on the souls of those who had survived. Merrick sat beside Lyra in the heart of their makeshift sanctuary, a small alcove carved from the ruins of an ancient temple that had once stood as a monument to peace and unity. The soft glow emanating from Lyra's healing aura bathed them both in gentle light, a sharp contrast to the darkness that pressed in from all sides. Merrick's hands trembled as he reached out, brushing the soft curve of her cheek, feeling the warmth and life that now flowed through her where once there had been only stillness. Their journey from abandonment to defiance had been forged in crucibles of fire and shadow, each battle a testament to the strange and beautiful power of protection that Lyra wielded. It was more than healing, it was a force that bound them, that gave strength not just to the body but to the heart and spirit. Merrick had learned that true survival was never solitary. It was the courage to shield another, to bear their pain, and to find redemption in shared struggle. As he looked into Lyra's luminous eyes, he saw reflected not just the girl who had been left to die, but the guardian she had become, the light that would guide countless others through the encroaching darkness. The Crimson Dominion's forces had retreated, battered but not broken, and Merrick knew their victory was only temporary. The galaxy beyond was a web of shifting alliances and merciless ambitions. The Dominion's shadow stretched long and far, but the resistance kindled on Vera Prime was a spark that could ignite rebellion across the stars. Merrick and Lyra began to rally survivors from scattered colonies and outposts, weaving a coalition bound by hope and the promise of protection. The alien girl's powers became a symbol of resilience, her shield a literal and figurative defense against despair. News of their resistance spread through the void, carried by whisper networks and encrypted transmissions. Allies from distant worlds answered the call, bringing ships, supplies, and warriors willing to stand against the Dominion's tyranny. Each arrival strengthened the fragile coalition, and Merrick found himself at the center of a movement larger than he had ever imagined. Yet with growth came danger. The Dominion unleashed assassins and saboteurs, dark agents who sought to extinguish the light before it could blaze fully. Merrick and Lyra faced betrayals, near captures, and moments of crushing doubt, but their bond endured, a testament to the healing power born of protection. One harrowing night, as they prepared for a decisive strike against a Dominion stronghold, Lyra's shield flared with unprecedented intensity. The effort drained her, leaving her vulnerable and fragile, yet the act of protection had once again mended wounds this time, not just physical but spiritual. Merrick held her, whispering promises of safety and strength, knowing their fight was as much about saving each other as it was about saving the galaxy. The battle that followed was fierce and brutal, a tempest of light and shadow clashing beneath blood-red skies. But Merrick and Lyra's combined will proved unstoppable. The Dominion's hold on the sector was broken, their warlords shattered, and their fleet scattered. Victory, however, was bittersweet. The cost had been high, friends lost, worlds scarred, and an uncertain future looming. But in the aftermath, Merrick understood the true meaning of the journey. They had been left to die, cast aside by those who saw weakness and despair. Yet through protection, through healing and sacrifice, they had become something greater, symbols of hope and resilience in a universe that often forgot the value of compassion. As dawn bathed Vera Prime in golden light, Merrick and Lyra stood together atop the highest ridge, gazing at the horizon where freedom awaited. The alien girl's glow mingled with the rising sun, a beacon for all who sought refuge from the darkness. Their legacy was written not in conquest or domination, but in the unyielding power to protect and heal. And though their battle was far from over, they faced the future unafraid, bound by a promise that no force could break. to stand as shields for one another and for all who could not fight alone. The stars above bore witness to their vow, shining brightly in the vastness of space. For in a galaxy where many had been abandoned to die, two souls had found redemption and the power to heal a fractured universe.